Hi! On this channel we talk about personal finance, investing, retirement and life in Japan. And today's topic, it's a bit of a departure from our normal topics. And so basically today I would like to talk about ANA's The Room business class seat. So last week I had to fly back to Europe suddenly to take care of some family business, and as I was looking for flights I found that I could book ANA's business class seats from Haneda to Heathrow, and I was able to do so with my ANA Air Miles. And this is quite difficult to do, especially recently. It's been very difficult to book seats. So it seems like your best chance to book business class international flights with ANA miles is to either book like a year ahead or book at the very last minute. And that's what I did. So you're not allowed to book less than 3 days in advance. And I basically booked 3 days ahead. Got my flights out on Tuesday and my flights back the following Tuesday. This is my first time flying in The Room, and I just wanted to share my thoughts about the experience. I'm going to be talking about the good, the okay, and the bad points of this new business class seat that ANA has on certain routes. So first of all, what is The Room? It's basically a business class seat that has doors, so it turns into a little private enclosed space. You actually get a kind of bench, so it's wide enough for about 2 people to sit on it, and you have, a little cubby hole for your feet. You get an enormous screen, and it's actually pretty good in terms of giving you your own space on the aircraft. One interesting thing about The Room is that it's built in pairs, and so half the seats face forward as normal and half the seats face backwards, and I've actually tried both of them. So on the way to London I had a backwards facing seat, and on the way back from London I had a forwards facing seat. Now initially I was a bit worried about the backwards facing seat. I thought it would be something like being in a car going backwards, which is not great if you get car sick at all. But with The Room on an aircraft, it really wasn't like that at all. Taking off was fine, the flight felt completely normal, and landing was actually better because you've got the wall behind you, you're kind of braced that way. So no problem whatsoever with the backwards facing seats. And of course flying forwards was completely fine as well. So what was good about The Room? Well, having your own space, being able to close the doors. They don't close completely, there's about an inch in the middle that's not covered, but it really does kind of isolate you from the aisle, from other passengers. And it's really nice having that kind of sense of privacy, especially in a business class seat. Another thing that was amazing was the screen. So you get an enormous, very nice screen to, watch videos on, etc. There's even an HDMI port, which I suspect you can plug in your computer and use that screen as your monitor instead. I'd have to check how big it is, but it's, it was a decent size. 4 times the size of a normal kind of seat back screen there. And that was definitely one of the huge highlights of The Room for me. Watching films on there, really immersive and just a huge upgrade from previous screens I've used on planes. Now, things that were okay with The Room. So for me, the food was okay. The food was pretty good leaving Japan, flying to London, but coming the other way, so out of London to Japan, I thought the food was not as good coming back. Same with the service. So going out, had a wonderful flight attendant who was fantastic, really nice, great interactions, fantastic service. Really happy with her. Coming back, not so much. I mean, it was fine. I'm not complaining. There were no problems. It just wasn't the same. So your food's gonna vary, I think, and the service is gonna vary as well. The internet too. So now it seems that ANA flies to London over the Arctic. So you go past Anchorage, you go over the North Pole, and so the Wi-Fi on the way to London only worked for the first 4 or 5 hours of the flight. It's a 14-hour flight now. And then it stopped working and it didn't work again until we landed, basically. Coming back from London, the Wi-Fi didn't work at all for the entire flight. Now, if you're in business or first class, you actually get free Wi-Fi on that flight. They'll send you a code before you go, but you basically can't use it for either, half the flight or the whole flight coming back. So the Wi-Fi was a bit of a disappointment as well. And so what was bad about the room? So there were a few things I didn't like about this seat. And the first one is that the seat felt pretty hard. So it wasn't a comfortable seat to sit on. And given the length of the flight, even it didn't feel comfortable enough, in my opinion. So it was a bit of a disappointment in terms of comfort. And the other thing that was disappointing about the seat is that it wasn't big enough. So I'm not huge, I'm 182 centimeters, but I found that the room seat wasn't long enough for me. So fortunately I sleep on my side, I kind of curl up a bit, and because you've actually got that bench, that wide bench, you can kind of go diagonally, and so I more or less fit if I went diagonally. But it certainly wasn't as long as some business class seats I've been on, so that was a disappointment as well. Another small issue with the room is that the seats are built in pairs, basically. I think 2 seats on the window side or 4 seats in the middle. That's like one unit. And so on the way to London, I had no issues whatsoever, but on the way back from London, the person in my facing seat, so the other seat of the unit, this small woman, was basically, when I was trying to go to sleep, she kept like moving and banging things and clanging things, and so that kind of noise, that vibration, was very noticeable within the seat pair. So I think you may have these kind of noise issues with your, companion, as it were, in the other seat of that set. So overall, what did I think of the room? I liked it. I really liked having my own space. I thought it was pretty revolutionary for a business class seat to have that amount of space, that amount of privacy. It was very cool. I do wish the seat was more comfortable. And I do wish it was slightly longer. But I think in terms of business, in terms of a business class seat, it was pretty good. And just a couple of small changes would make it unbeatable. Now, as I said, I actually used miles to book my flights. And so Haneda to Heathrow was 140,000 ANA miles return. And I had to pay just under 100,000 yen in fees and taxes. And I think this is very high because it's the UK, which has very high airport tax, basically. Now, the cash price for the room on the same trip, so I kind of priced it out in terms of buying it and then also using miles. And the cash price would have been something like 1.2 million yen for that same flight. And I would not pay that for this. I've looked at some alternatives. There's some quite cheap business class flights. You can go with some of the Chinese airlines for about 500,000 yen in business. It takes a bit longer because you have to change a couple of times. But I think if I was paying cash, I'd probably look at those alternatives instead. Possibly it's cheaper at different times of the year, or booking further out. If you book in advance, it might be cheaper as well. But yeah, I wouldn't pay 1.2 million yen for this. But booking with miles, it was fantastic. And the nice thing about using miles is that you can make these last minute bookings, which, if you're buying them with cash, they can be quite expensive because the prices can go up the closer you get to the flight. But using miles, it's generally the same amount of miles. So this is a really good way to deal with kind of sudden trips, emergency trips. Just having some air miles in reserve for that can be really, really useful. Now, other alternatives to book business class flights towards Europe, especially. I've used Lufthansa before. Lufthansa's a great choice. I've used British Airways. That was not good. I wouldn't probably fly British Airways again. I've used Austrian Airways, which is in the Lufthansa group, but that was really nice. I really enjoyed flying with them as well. And also Asiana is a good option from Sendai, because there's a flight from Sendai to Seoul, and then you can fly from Seoul on Asiana as well. And that can be quite a cheap way to fly back to Europe. So how about you? Have you tried the room, and what did you think? Do you agree with me with some of the downsides of the seat? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.